So here we are back with Endoscopy Essentials. Our brain is still full with the Spanish study, COLONPREV. Welcome, John Anderson.
Thank you.
What's the UK reaction, or what's your reaction to the study? It's a friendly study. It's friendly to everybody.
It is.
What do you think?
Very interesting, Thomas. I think interesting in many ways. I mean, the headline news is that they essentially had a randomized controlled trial to either have a FIT or colonoscopy. And after the randomization, they looked at the study results, and actually there is no difference in the outcome whether you get a colonoscopy or you're screened with FIT, which is staggering, really, in some respects. The two things about this study that really stick out to me are, firstly, when they randomized certain people to colonoscopy, they were allowed to elect to have a FIT test and not a colonoscopy. And so one of the things you've got to think about is what drives that. So what is the culture in Spain that people do not want to have a colonoscopy? Because undoubtedly the results will slightly be skewed because of that, and there'll need to be a sub-analysis.
But that's real life on the other hand.
That's real life. And that's exactly what they say. The other interesting bit is the people who didn't have either, and that group is enormous. And so when people choose not to take part in a screening program, there's going to be a selection bias. And you could argue that people who want to have a colonoscopy either may have symptoms or may have a worried well or well-informed group. So the sub-analysis will be interesting, but the data is the data. And what I like about this study, it is real life. So people had a choice, they made a choice, and then they followed it up. And it's really interesting when you look at the study results. So they're looking at two things, really. They're looking at the incidence of cancer occurring in the groups, and then maybe do you have any impact on the incident? Much more difficult to assess, but certainly you can look at the outcome, and there was no difference in the two groups. So it is fascinating. It's fascinating in the UK because we are heavily reliant on FIT. We have what they call a national screening program, as do many countries around the world. But in truth, Thomas, the national screening program is not truly a national screening program. It is, but it has a fence, and the fence is the FIT test. So unless you have a positive FIT, you don't get into the screening program, which is different to virtually any other screening program which is offered to the whole population. So that's the first difference. The second difference in the UK, we started with a FIT level of 120. We're dropping it to 80, and we are a long way off of FIT 20, which is what was in this study. And I think that's probably a better measure of where you need to be at in population screening. It's not perfect, but it's probably better than what we have in the UK. So we look upon it, it's probably the way forward. We probably have to push our FIT level down. To do that, we have to generate capacity. But in the UK, we've got a strange situation where we have a national screening program, and unfortunately, the vast majority of our colorectal cancers, Thomas, are being picked up in the symptomatic group. They're not being picked up by the screening program, and we almost need to reverse the proportions that, for that's occurring. And this may be a tool to do that.
Well, that hasn't been in any of the big studies, what happens in the entire country.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very interesting perspective. If you look at the entirety of the UK, and you say, here we have the nice screening programs and you find cancer, but that's the ivory tower.
Absolutely.
Outside of the tower, there are a lot of people still being diagnosed at a symptomatic stage. How would adherence be in the UK? It started with 30-40, and then, as usually during the subsequent rounds, is it better in the UK?
It is better, I think, Thomas. I think we are very fortunate that we set up the screening program, and we, from a very early stage, we recognized that the screening program was screening asymptomatic healthy people in the population. And we learned we had a few problems in the breast and the cervical screening programs, and we didn't really want to injure the patients if we could avoid it. So we did several things. There was a very big PR publicity, and we had engagement with groups that would normally not engage with the program, and it was a very outward-facing positive message. And the second is we built in quality assurance in the screening program itself. So as you will be aware, our screeners actually undergo an accreditation test before they can do the screening. So not everyone can do a screening colonoscopy. You have to be accredited to do it. And the rationale behind that was, yeah, people are competent at the procedure, but we want really the best guys or people who prove themselves to be a little bit better than the rest of the guys to be doing the screening, to really minimize any harm that has occurred. Because in a screening program, Yes, we will save lives, but one thing's for sure, some will die as a result of having screening who hasn't got the cancer. And we have to be able to defend that position, really.
But that rate has been very, very low in the two studies, almost zero, right?
Yeah.
So, and we shouldn't forget that we get results of something which started 10 years plus ago, which is inevitable if you want to have 10-year results. So another issue you mentioned are the patients undergoing screening, or maybe those more frequently in the colonoscopy group, really asymptomatic, or is that?
Who knows?
Did anybody look into that?
No, but it was very interesting. We had a discussion about the paper, I think, 2 days ago, and that's one of the questions. So that, I think that's a key question in terms of culture, or in terms of promotion of the study, or positive or negative. And I think that subgroup analysis of the people who don't undertake a study, undertake a test, is probably the critical group, because if you understand why, maybe you can change or influence them by addressing those factors. So, yeah.
So in the UK, you have very good databases, right? I remember COVID, we lived from your database and the Israel database.
Yeah.
What would be the next project you would look at? The comparison of the entire country and the screening ivory tower? Or has anybody thought about that?
No, I'm sure they've thought about it quite a lot. So you are correct. We have a wealth of data, in fairness, and we would welcome actually suggestions for how we use it. We've got some very clever people doing that as well, but we regard it's not so much an ivory tower, it's just a different subgroup of people, I think. And we have two systems of data collection. So we have data collection of the bowel cancer screening group, which is collated on one system, but it's also part of the national database. So we could probably do that comparative analysis relatively easily now if we had the access to the data. So like everything, we have the data. Getting access to the data is a different challenge.
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
So there's more to discuss in the future. Thanks very much, John.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you.
So thank you for watching and listening. There will be further news on colon screening in the future on Endoscopy Essentials. Thank you.